Muscular, wealthy, so married the woman he despised, but their fixed marriage made him fall deeply in love. Nia's free hand gripped the windowsill as a train rumbled past, rattling the thin glass. Outside, Brooklyn continued its daily rhythm while her world tilted on its axis. Have you ever been forced to face someone from your past you swore to avoid? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The moment Grayson Maddox discovered his grandfather's final betrayal wasn't at the funeral. It was 3 days later in a downtown Atlanta law office where the words, "must marry Nia Monroe," threatened to destroy everything he built. "This can't be legally binding," Grayson said, his voice cutting through the silence. The attorney adjusted his glasses, unfazed by the fury radiating from the man worth over $500 million. "I assure you, Mr. Maddox, your grandfather's legal team made this ironclad. To receive your inheritance and maintain control of Maddox Fitness, you must marry Nia Monroe within 30 days and remain married for 6 months." Grayson's jaw tightened as he stared at the Atlanta skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. His grandfather had always been calculating, but this was a new level of manipulation from beyond the grave. The attorney cleared his throat. "Your grandfather believed this union would heal old wounds between the families." "Heal wounds?" Grayson laughed without humor. "The Monroes nearly destroyed my father. That woman dragged our name through every courtroom and news station in Georgia." His mind flashed to his last meaningless encounter with a supermodel in Milan. All perfect curves and practiced moans, leaving him empty despite physical satisfaction. Now his grandfather expected him to marry the daughter of his family's greatest enemy? The attorney's voice faded to white noise as Grayson stared at the document, the mahogany conference table suddenly feeling like an execution block. His empire, built through ruthless dedication and sheer will, now hinged on a marriage to a stranger. "What happens if I refuse?" Grayson finally asked. "Everything goes to charity. Your voting shares, the foundation, the real estate holdings. All of it. Would you marry a stranger for millions? What price would you put on your freedom? Drop your answer in the comments." 3,000 miles away in Brooklyn, Nia Monroe's phone rang with news that would collide their worlds, and neither was prepared for the devastation waiting on the other side of "I do." Nia Monroe had fought her way out of Detroit with nothing but determination and a scholarship, only to be told her future now depended on marrying the son of the man who'd called her mother a liar on national television. "This has to be a joke," she whispered, clutching her phone tighter as her godmother's raspy breathing filled the background of her tiny Brooklyn apartment. "I'm supposed to marry Grayson Maddox? That Grayson Maddox?" "The very same," her mother's old attorney confirmed. "Samuel Maddox's will stipulates that for his grandson to receive his inheritance, he must marry you. And there's something else. The educational foundation you've been trying to fund? It's part of the inheritance." Nia's free hand gripped the windowsill as a train rumbled past, rattling the thin glass. Outside, Brooklyn continued its daily rhythm while her world tilted on its axis. "Why would he do this?" she asked. Samuel Maddox had his reasons. The question is, what will you do about it? What would she do? Nia had spent years building a life separate from the shadow of that lawsuit. After clawing her way through college, earning her master's in education, and moving to New York to care for her godmother through cancer treatments, the last thing she needed was to be pulled back into Maddox family drama. Her tiny apartment shook with each passing train, the vibrations matching her trembling hands as she Googled the man she was supposed to call husband. The search results loaded. Grayson Maddox, 32, CEO of Maddox Fitness Empire, estimated worth $120 million. His ice blue eyes stared back at her from the screen, sending an unwelcome heat through her body despite her determination to feel nothing but contempt. Have you ever been forced to face someone from your past you swore to avoid? Drop a heart if you've been there. The lawyer mentioned $500 million in a 6-month marriage. What he failed to mention was that Grayson Maddox had already hired investigators to find anything that would disqualify her, and he was willing to pay millions to stay single. She wore white Converse to their first meeting. He wore a $10,000 suit. Both came armed with reasons to hate each other. Neither expected the electricity that would charge the air between them. The Manhattan law office overlooked Central Park, all glass and money and power. Nia took a deep breath before pushing through the door, head high despite feeling completely out of place. She'd chosen her outfit deliberately, professional enough with dark jeans and a blazer, but the sneakers were her armor, a reminder that she wouldn't bend to his world. Grayson Maddox stood as she entered, taller than she'd expected. His photographs didn't capture the sheer force of his presence. The broad shoulders, the perfectly tailored suit, the way his eyes assessed everything in seconds. "Ms. Monroe," he said, voice cool and controlled. "Mr. Maddox," she returned, refusing to show intimidation. The conference room's glass walls displayed Manhattan in all its glory, but Grayson couldn't look away from the woman who entered with her chin high, as if the power dynamic wasn't completely in his favor. Not what he'd expected. The investigator's file showed a school counselor from Detroit who'd fought her way to NYU on scholarship. He'd anticipated someone meek or obviously gold-digging. Instead, he found himself facing a woman whose eyes challenged him directly. The lawyer laid out documents as they sat across from each other, tension crackling between them. "Let's be clear," Grayson said. "This arrangement is business. 6 months, separate bedrooms, public appearances when necessary." "Fine by me," Nia replied. "I have no interest in playing house with someone who thinks my mother is a liar." His jaw tightened. "Your mother's lawsuit nearly destroyed my father. Your father's company poisoned an entire community, and my mother was the only one brave enough to speak up," she shot back. When the prenup slid across the table, their fingers brushed, a jolt of unexpected heat that made both pull back too quickly. "I don't want your money," she stated, sliding his prenup back untouched. "I want control of the educational foundation mentioned in the will. That's my only condition. What would be your non-negotiable in a marriage contract? Let me know in the comments below." As they signed the agreement, their fingers brushed again, this time lingering a second too long. The lawyer cleared his throat, but neither pulled away immediately, trapped in silent acknowledgement of a current neither wanted to admit existed. Their wedding had everything money could buy except the one thing that mattered: 2 people who actually wanted to be there. The judge arrived at Grayson's penthouse precisely at noon. No flowers, no music, no guests. Just lawyers, a photographer for documentation, and an uncomfortable silence. Nia wore a simple white dress she'd found at a Brooklyn boutique, refusing Grayson's offered credit card for something more expensive. He wore another immaculate suit, this one a deep navy that made his eyes look almost electric. "Do you, Grayson Samuel Maddox, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" His voice was firm, businesslike. "I do." "And do you, Nia Jacqueline Monroe, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" She hesitated just for a beat. "I do." The judge pronounced them husband and wife under crystal chandeliers and corporate artwork. No friends, no family, just lawyers and assistants checking watches. When his assistant pushed open the balcony doors for the required photos, flashbulbs exploded from paparazzi in nearby buildings. The merger between Maddox and Monroe was apparently big news. "Vultures," Grayson muttered, instinctively stepping in front of Nia to block their view. The protective gesture surprised them both. "You may kiss the bride," the judge announced with practiced indifference. They turned to each other awkwardly. This wasn't in the contract discussions. His lips touched hers for precisely 3 seconds, the minimum required to look authentic in a mandatory photograph. 3 seconds that scorched through her defenses like lightning through a summer storm. His mouth was warm, firm, nothing like the cold businessman she'd built in her mind. When he pulled away, something flashed in his eyes: confusion, heat, frustration, before his mask slipped back into place. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of signatures and champagne nobody wanted. By evening, Nia stood in the guest bedroom of Grayson's penthouse, surrounded by her few possessions that had been moved in while they were signing papers. Have you ever found yourself attracted to someone you're supposed to dislike? Comment fire if you know the confusing feeling. That night, Alone in the guest room of his penthouse, Nia curled into herself and finally let the tears come. She didn't know Grayson stood outside her door, hand raised to knock, before walking away. Both prisoners of choice that wasn't really a choice at all. Living with your enemy teaches you things textbooks never could, like how the most dangerous man in Manhattan takes his coffee black, but secretly adds honey when no one's watching. Nia discovered this on her third morning, entering the kitchen before dawn to find Grayson already dressed for his 5 a.m. workout, stirring honey into his mug when he thought he was alone. He froze when he saw her, caught in this small human moment. "I won't tell anyone you have a sweet tooth," she said, reaching past him for a mug. "Your reputation as a ruthless businessman is safe with me." Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face before disappearing. Early riser? Always have been. Hard habit to break when you grow up with paper-thin walls and noisy neighbors. The penthouse spanned 5,000 square feet of pristine minimalism, all glass, steel, and emptiness that echoed with every step she took. The view of Manhattan glittered below like a carpet of diamonds, beautiful but cold. Like the man she'd married, they established an uneasy rhythm over the first week. He left at 5:30 a.m. for the office, returned after 9 p.m. She took the subway to the community center in Brooklyn, where she volunteered while looking for a new counseling position. They passed like ships in the night, careful to maintain distance when their paths crossed. Until the morning she stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, and collided with him in the hallway. Steam escaped the bathroom as he emerged, towel slung dangerously low on his hips. She froze, coffee mug suspended midair, eyes inadvertently tracing the path of a water droplet down the ridged terrain of his abdomen. His workout had apparently been effective. Each muscle looked carved from marble, a light sheen of sweat making his skin glow in the morning light. "Sorry," they both mumbled, stepping sideways in the same direction, then the opposite direction, a clumsy dance of avoidance. "You're up early," she managed, clutching her towel tighter. "Board meeting prep," he replied, eyes determinedly fixed on her face despite the obvious effort it took. "You're going somewhere?" "Job interview. School counselor position in Queens." He nodded, then surprised her. "Good luck." That night, his phone rang at midnight, and he barked orders about damage control. Nia pretended not to notice the name on the screen. Her ex-boyfriend, now Grayson's biggest corporate rival. Some coincidences weren't coincidences at all. Living with someone reveals their true character. What habit of yours would surprise a roommate? Share below. He found her crying in the dark kitchen at 3 a.m. Not the polished fighter who challenged him daily, but a woman haunted by ghosts that mirrored his own. Grayson had been working late in his home office when he heard it, a muffled sob from the kitchen. He found Nia sitting at the island counter, moonlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating tear tracks on her face. "Sorry," she said, quickly wiping her cheeks. "I thought you were asleep." "Are you okay?" he asked, awkwardly hovering at the entrance. "My godmother's test results came back. The cancer has spread." Grayson moved to the refrigerator, pulled out a bottle of wine, and poured 2 glasses without asking. He placed one in front of her and took the stool beside her, close but not touching. "My mother died of cancer," he said quietly. "Pancreatic. I was 14. Nia looked up, surprised by this volunteered information. "I'm sorry." "My father shut down afterward. Buried himself in work. That's when the company started cutting corners." Moonlight cut sharp angles across the marble island where she sat, transforming tear tracks into silver ribbons down her cheeks. For the first time, they spoke of real things. Her childhood in Detroit, his lonely years at boarding school, how they both grew up faster than they should have. "My mom wasn't trying to destroy your father," she said finally. "She was just fighting for kids who were getting sick from the chemical runoff. Her own sister, my aunt, died from the contamination." Something shifted in Grayson's expression. "I didn't know that. There's a lot our families never knew about each other." He reached to brush away a tear, and his thumb lingered against her cheekbone. The kitchen seemed to shrink around them, oxygen thinning as her pulse jumped beneath his touch. For a moment, neither moved, caught in this unexpected intimacy. "We should get some sleep," he finally said, voice rougher than before. "Grayson," she called as he turned to leave. "Thank you for listening. What secrets have you shared in the safety of darkness that you'd never admit in daylight? Tell me about a time vulnerability changed your relationship." As dawn broke over Manhattan, they'd shared more truth in one night than in lifetimes of carefully constructed defenses. Grayson realized with unsettling clarity that the woman he'd married as a business transaction was becoming dangerously real, and that terrified him more than losing every dollar he owned. The cameras caught them holding hands at the charity gala. What they missed was how neither let go even after the photographers left. "Remember, we're madly in love tonight," Grayson murmured as their town car pulled up to the Metropolitan Museum steps. "My board members will be watching." Nia smoothed her emerald gown, a designer piece he'd insisted on buying for the occasion. "Don't worry, I can pretend to tolerate you for one night." His small smile caught her off guard. "You're getting better at jokes, Mrs. Maddox." The name still felt foreign, but less uncomfortable than 3 weeks ago. Camera flashes exploded like stars around them as they descended the grand staircase, her emerald gown contrasting with his black tuxedo. Enemies playing lovers playing strangers trying to find solid ground. Inside, New York's elites circled like sharks, curious about the mysterious woman who tamed Manhattan's most eligible CEO. Grayson kept her close, his hand at the small of her back. "That's Senator Brooks," he whispered, guiding her through the crowd. "And the woman in red is Claire Huntington, my biggest investor. Should I be taking notes?" Nia teased. "Just be yourself." "That's—" He hesitated. More than enough. His hand at the small of her back guided her through the crowd, each finger burning imprints through the thin fabric. "Smile like you want me," he whispered against her ear. The performance required no acting. When the orchestra began playing, he led her to the dance floor without discussion. His hand settled on her waist, surprisingly gentle for a man known for his ruthlessness in business. She felt the curious stares, heard the whispers. "They're wondering what you see in me," she said quietly. "Let them wonder." His eyes held hers. "I'm starting to figure it out myself." The song ended, but he didn't release her right away. Something had shifted between them, a current neither was willing to name, but both felt with increasing intensity. When she excused herself to the restroom, he followed minutes later, knocking softly on the door of the private powder room. The bathroom door clicked shut behind them, away from prying eyes. "This isn't part of our agreement," she whispered as his face lowered toward hers. "Maybe it should be," he answered. And all the carefully drawn lines between contract and desire blurred beyond recognition. When was the moment you realized attraction had replaced animosity? Share your enemies to lovers story in real life. Their first kiss wasn't gentle. It was 6 weeks of resistance crumbling under the weight of want neither could deny any longer. His lips claimed hers in the dimly lit bathroom, backing her against marble countertops. Her hands clutched his lapels, torn between pushing him away and pulling him closer. They'd been dancing around this moment since that first meeting, pretending the tension between them was just antagonism when they both knew it was something far more dangerous. "We shouldn't," she gasped when they broke for air. "Give me one good reason," he challenged, eyes dark with desire. She couldn't think of one, not with his body pressed against hers, his hand cradling her face like she was something precious instead of convenient. They barely made it back to the penthouse, the town car thick with unspoken promises. In the elevator, he kept his distance until the doors closed, then pinned her against the wall, mouth hot against her neck. "The cameras," she reminded him breathlessly. "I own the building," he growled. "No one sees this footage." Morning light spilled across tangled sheets that held evidence of boundaries shattered, agreements broken, and a hunger neither had anticipated when signing their names to cold legal documents. Nia woke first, studying his face in sleep. Younger, vulnerable, the hard lines of determination softened. He kissed her like a man drowning, and she was air, desperate, demanding, his controlled facade cracking with each touch. "Tell me to stop," he growled against her throat. Her answer was to pull him closer, nails marking territory on skin no prenup could protect. She slipped from bed, wrapping herself in his discarded shirt, and padded to the kitchen. What now? This wasn't supposed to happen. Attraction wasn't part of the deal. Neither was the warmth spreading through her chest when she remembered how he'd looked at her, as if she was the answer to questions he'd been asking his whole life. She was pouring coffee when strong arms encircled her waist from behind. "Morning," he murmured against her neck. "Morning," she returned, leaning back despite her better judgment. "About last night? No regrets," he said firmly, turning her to face him. "Not for me. Physical chemistry can override logical thinking. Has your body ever made a decision your mind wasn't ready for? Comment below if you've been betrayed by your own desire. Wrapped in nothing but sheets and new vulnerability." His phone lit up with an urgent message. Someone had leaked confidential product designs to her ex-boyfriend's company. The accusatory question in Grayson's eyes froze her blood. Trust, so new and fragile, already threatened before it had fully formed. He didn't ask if she betrayed him, and that silence hurt more than any accusation ever could. "Aren't you going to say anything?" Nia demanded, clutching the sheet tighter around her body. The warmth of their night together evaporated in seconds. Grayson stared at his phone, face unreadable. "The timing is concerning." "Concerning? That's all you have to say?" Her voice rose. "Just ask me, Grayson. Ask me if I sold your company's secrets to my ex. Did you?" His eyes finally met hers, giving nothing away. "No, I would never do that." He nodded once, then stood. "I need to go to the office. We'll talk later." The door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow hurt worse than a slam would have. He hadn't accused her outright, but he hadn't believed her either. The middle ground was quicksand. For 3 days, they circled each other like wounded animals. He worked late. She threw herself into her new counseling job. The bed they'd shared remained empty as she retreated to the guest room. When they passed in the hallway or kitchen, conversation stayed surface level, polite, empty. The office conference room felt arctic, executives' eyes following her every move as she entered the space previously off-limits to her. Grayson's professional sanctuary now infiltrated by personal complications. He'd called, asking her to come for an emergency board meeting. Mrs. Maddox, the board chairman, greeted her with thinly veiled suspicion. "Thank you for joining us on such short notice." Grayson sat at the head of the table, tie loosened, shadows under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept well either. "The board has questions about the leak," he explained. "I thought you should be here to answer them yourself." For the next hour, they questioned her about her relationship with Michael Chun, her ex-boyfriend, now running Global Fitness, their biggest competitor. She answered truthfully, keeping her head high despite the humiliation burning through her. "I dated Michael in college. We haven't spoken in years. I have no access to Maddox fitness files, no knowledge of a new product line, and no reason to sabotage the company I'm legally tied to." That night, he stood at her bedroom door, knuckles white against the frame. "I don't know what to believe," he admitted. She stepped back, inviting him in without words. "Then stop thinking," she whispered, fingers working his tie loose. "Just feel what's real. Trust is easily broken, but slowly rebuilt. Have you ever had to earn someone's trust back? What did it take? Share your experience." As she fell asleep in his arms, his phone lit up with a security alert he didn't see. Surveillance footage showing someone entering his office using Nia's access card at exactly the time she'd been across town with a sister. Someone was framing her, and doing a masterful job of it. The evidence against her was perfect, too perfect, like someone knew exactly which breadcrumbs to leave for him to follow straight into destroying what they'd built. Grayson reviewed the security footage for the 5th time, a sick feeling growing in his stomach. The timestamp showed Nia's access card swiping into the R&D department at 2:15 p.m. yesterday, exactly when she'd been at lunch with his sister Vanessa. He'd verified with the restaurant. They remembered the 2 women clearly. "Someone has her card," he told his head of security, a former FBI agent named Rivera. "Or cloned it. The system shows it was her biometric signature too," Rivera pointed out. "Fingerprint and retina scan. That's impossible. Not impossible, just expensive and complicated. Rivera leaned forward. This is an inside job, Grayson. Someone with high-level access. Security footage played on loop on his laptop, damning in its clarity. Her access card, her codes, her ex receiving files worth millions. Everything pointed to betrayal except the one thing he was starting to trust, his gut. He didn't tell Nia about the footage. Not yet. Instead, he watched her. The way she hummed while making coffee, how she kicked off her heels the moment she walked through the door, her genuine excitement when her students made progress. Either she was the best actress he'd ever met, or she was innocent. His suspicions shifted to his executive team, particularly Marcus Wright, his CFO and oldest friend. Marcus had been acting strange lately, canceling their weekly racquetball game, taking calls in stairwells, asking oddly specific questions about the merger with European markets. When Nia came home that night, she found Grayson waiting with a glass of wine. "I need to apologize," he said simply. Her eyebrows rose. "For doubting you. I know you didn't leak those files." Relief washed over her face, followed quickly by anger. "What changed your mind?" "Because I've been telling you that for days. I found evidence that someone's setting you up." He showed her the timestamp footage. "You physically couldn't have been in two places at once." They came together like opposing storms, anger and need creating electricity that sparked with each clash of lips and grasp of hands. "I want to trust you," he groaned against her mouth. She bit his lower lip in response. Gentle punishment for doubting what was becoming undeniable. Later, wrapped in each other and the truth, he told her his suspicions about Marcus. "The board meeting is tomorrow morning. They're voting on whether to remove me as CEO unless I divorce you immediately. When your heart and head are telling you different things, which do you follow? Comment below with your decision-making process in relationships." The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m., a vote of no confidence that could remove him as CEO unless he cut all ties with Nia. As midnight approached, his phone rang. The security chief had found something. But the evidence that could save them both was waiting in the last place Grayson would think to look. The board gave him a choice, his wife or his company, but they didn't realize Grayson Maddox had stopped making decisions based on spreadsheets the moment Nia taught him there were things money couldn't quantify. "Gentlemen, ladies," Grayson nodded as he entered the boardroom, deliberately 5 minutes late. The 12 board members sat like judges ready to pass sentence. Marcus Wright, his CFO and oldest friend, avoided eye contact. "Let's skip the pleasantries." Eleanor Winters, the lead director, began. "This situation is untenable. Your marriage to Ms. Monroe has created a conflict of interest that threatens the entire company." "My marriage to Mrs. Maddox," Grayson corrected firmly, "has nothing to do with the security breach. The evidence suggests otherwise." Marcus finally spoke, sliding a folder across the table. "Her access card, her biometrics, her ex-boyfriend receiving our most valuable intellectual property. The pattern is clear." Grayson opened the folder and examined the contents without expression. "Interesting timing on this additional evidence. Marcus, where did you get it?" "That's irrelevant," Eleanor cut in. "What's relevant is the board's decision. Either you divorce Nia Monroe immediately, or we invoke the emergency succession clause." The boardroom fell silent as he loosened his tie, the gesture of a man shedding armor rather than preparing for battle. "If the condition of keeping my position is abandoning my wife, gentlemen, you should start looking for my replacement now." Shock rippled around the table. Marcus's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "You can't be serious," Eleanor sputtered. "You've built this company for 10 years. And I'll continue building it," Grayson replied calmly. "But not at the expense of my integrity. My wife is innocent." "You have proof?" Marcus challenged, a vein pulsing in his temple. "I do." Grayson pressed a button on his phone. The lights dimmed as the wall screen illuminated with security footage. "This is our lobby yesterday at 2:15 p.m., the exact time someone used Nia's credentials to access R&D. The footage showed Nia clearly entering a restaurant downtown with Vanessa. Biometrics can be faked with the right connections, Grayson continued. Access cards can be cloned. The question isn't who's being framed. It's who has the resources and motive to frame her. As the meeting adjourned in confusion, Rivera pulled Grayson aside. "We found something on the home security system. You need to see this immediately." She pushed him against the penthouse door the moment it closed behind them. "No one has ever chosen me first," she breathed against his mouth. "Get used to it," he growled, lifting her against him as her legs wrapped around his waist. Hours later, naked and breathless, she traced the line of his jaw. "Would you really have given up your company for me?" Without hesitation, he answered, surprising himself with the truth of it. "Have you ever had someone choose you when it cost them something significant? Or have you been the one to make that choice? Share your story of sacrifice for love." The security footage from their smart home system revealed a shocking truth. The person using Nia's credentials was Grayson's most trusted executive and oldest friend. But the betrayal went deeper than corporate espionage. The timestamp showed him entering their home while they were out, planting listening devices in every room, including their bedroom. Every intimate confession, every vulnerable moment, every sound of pleasure they'd shared had been monitored by someone who'd sat across from them at dinner with a smile that never reached his eyes. "He's been inside our home," Nia whispered, watching the footage of Marcus Wright entering their penthouse using an override code. The security camera caught him placing tiny devices throughout the apartment, under the dining table, behind picture frames, inside light fixtures. 23 devices total, Rivera confirmed after sweeping the apartment. High-grade stuff. Military level. He's heard everything for at least 2 months. Grayson's expression hardened into something dangerous. "Get the FBI involved. Now." "Already done," Rivera nodded. "But we need proof of what he's doing with the information. They want to catch him in the act." The plan came together quickly. They would leave the listening devices active, feed Marcus false information about a non-existent product launch, then track where the information went. The FBI would handle the rest. Except Grayson had a different timeline. "I'm confronting him today," he told Nia after Rivera left. "I can't sit across from him in meetings knowing what he's done." The FBI said to wait. "This is personal now." His voice dropped. "He's heard everything. Our conversations. Our intimate moments. Everything." The realization made her skin crawl. Every whispered confession, every moan of pleasure, every vulnerable moment. All recorded and listened to by someone they trusted. Grayson found Marcus in his office that afternoon, calmly reviewing quarterly reports as if he hadn't betrayed years of friendship. Marcus lounged in Grayson's office chair like he already owned it. Family photos rearranged on the desk. A subtle power play from a man who'd been rewriting reality for months. "Working late?" Grayson asked, closing the door behind him. "Someone has to keep things running while you play house with Detroit." Marcus smirked, not bothering to move from Grayson's chair. "Funny you should mention my house." Grayson placed a listening device on the desk, one of the ones Rivera had found. "Care to explain?" Marcus's smile faltered only for a second before returning, colder now. "Clever. How'd you find them?" "You made a mistake. Got sloppy. My only mistake was underestimating how quickly she'd get under your skin." Marcus leaned forward. "You were supposed to hate her. That was the point. You were so busy looking for reasons to distrust her. You never saw me coming." Marcus smiled. "Your grandfather knew better. Why do you think he forced you to marry someone who would wake you up to what was happening right under your nose?" The revelation hit Grayson like a physical blow. "My grandfather knew? About you?" He suspected. Never had proof. The marriage clause was his insurance policy, bringing in someone outside our circle who might spot what he couldn't prove. Marcus stood, dropping all pretense. "Global Fitness offered me $30 million for what I've delivered. Your entire R&D pipeline, customer data, everything. You'll never get away with this." Marcus laughed. "I already have. Who do you think the board will believe? Me, or the man who threw away his future for a woman he's known 3 months? Sometimes betrayal comes from those closest to us. Have you ever been blindsided by someone you trusted completely? How did you recover?" The FBI agent placed the recording device on the table between them. "We've been tracking this operation for years," she explained. "But what we need is for one of you to wear a wire tomorrow. The problem is Based on our intelligence, whoever does this has a 60% chance of not coming back alive. She volunteered before he could speak. The same fierce determination that had brought her from Detroit projects to a Manhattan penthouse, now taking her into danger he couldn't protect her from. "I'll do it," Nia said, voice steady despite the FBI agent's warning. "I'm the logical choice." "Absolutely not," Grayson countered, reaching for her hand across the kitchen island. "Marcus knows we're onto him. It's too dangerous." "That's exactly why it has to be me," she insisted. "He'll be watching you. He won't expect me to be working with the FBI." Agent Diaz nodded reluctantly. "She's right. Mr. Wright is surveilling you closely, Mr. Maddox." Mrs. Maddox could approach him under the pretense of wanting to make a deal, information about your company in exchange for a payoff. Grayson paced the penthouse living room, the city lights twinkling below like nothing was wrong, like his world wasn't balanced on a knife's edge. "There has to be another way. We don't have time," Agent Diaz stressed. "He's meeting with global fitness representatives tomorrow. If we don't get concrete evidence before then, we lose our chance." The plan took shape over the next few hours. Nia would text Marcus, claiming to have discovered Grayson's plans to remove her from their shared accounts. She'd suggest a meeting at Lou Bernardine, offering company secrets in exchange for financial security. "The wire is undetectable," Agent Diaz assured, showing Nia the tiny microphone disguised as a necklace pendant. "But if he's using scanning equipment, he might find it. If that happens, abort immediately." At dawn, Nia prepared in their bedroom, hand steady despite the fear churning inside. Grayson watched from the doorway, face drawn with worry. "You don't have to do this," he said softly. "Yes, I do." She turned to face him. "He tried to destroy us. Use my past to drive us apart. I need to be the one to end this." The restaurant gleamed with old money and new threats, crystal chandeliers reflecting in polished silver as she navigated to the corner table where Marcus waited, a small microphone hidden beneath her cashmere sweater, capturing each anxious heartbeat. "Nia," Marcus greeted with a sharp smile. "What a surprise." "Save it," she replied coldly. "You know exactly why I'm here. Trouble in paradise already?" "I'm shocked." His tone suggested he was anything but. "Grayson's cutting me out, changing accounts, talking to divorce attorneys." The lies felt bitter on her tone. Marcus studied her, eyes calculating. "And you think I can help?" "I think you're already helping yourself to company secrets." "I want in." In the surveillance van parked a block away, Grayson listened intently, jaw clenched as Marcus began questioning Nia about specific projects, security protocols, upcoming announcements. Before she left the van, he pulled her into an embrace that contained every word he hadn't said. "Come back to me," he demanded against her lips. She kissed him with equal intensity, a promise, a claim, a declaration without vocabulary. "Interesting proposition," Marcus said finally, reaching into his jacket. He pulled out a small device, running it over the table, then around his chair. Then he pointed it at Nia. The device beeped loudly. "What would you risk for someone you love? Is there a line you wouldn't cross, even to protect them? Share your thoughts below." The agent's voice crackled through Grayson's earpiece. "We've lost audio. Something's jamming the signal." On the restaurant's security monitor, he watched helplessly as Marcus leaned toward Nia, sliding something across the table that made her face drain of color. Then the feed cut to black. He broke protocol, 3 federal laws, and the restaurant's front window to reach her. Rules didn't matter when her life hung in the balance of seconds. "Stay in position," Agent Diaz ordered as the surveillance feed went dark. "Backup is 4 minutes out." "She doesn't have 4 minutes," Grayson growled, already moving toward the door. "Mr. Maddox, we can't authorize civilian intervention." But he was already running, dodging through midday Manhattan traffic, heart pounding with a fear unlike anything he'd known before. Not fear for his company or reputation, but raw terror at the thought of losing her. Glass rained across imported marble as Grayson charged through the shattered entrance. Marcus's gun already trained on Nia's heart. But her eyes held no fear, only calculated determination as she met Grayson's gaze across the chaos. "Right on time," Marcus said calmly, as panicked diners scrambled toward exits. "I was just explaining to your wife how this ends." On the table between them lay photographs, surveillance shots of Nia at her mother's lawsuit years ago, paired with images of Grayson's father leaving rehab after his breakdown. "You think this ends with me?" Marcus laughed. "Your grandfather built his empire on buried bodies. Did you really believe the marriage clause was about redemption? It was about silencing the only two families who knew the truth." "What truth?" Grayson demanded, calculating the distance to Marcus, to Nia, to the nearest exit. That Maddox Sr. and Monroe weren't enemies at all. They were partners. Partners in covering up toxic dumping that killed hundreds in Detroit and Atlanta. Your father took the fall while her mother took the blame. Meanwhile, your grandfather walked away clean with millions. Nia's eyes widened. "My mother lost everything. Her reputation, her health, everything. Exactly as planned." Marcus nodded. "Samuel Maddox needed someone to blame. Your mother was perfect, a crusading community activist. No one would believe against a powerful corporation." "Why tell us this now?" Grayson asked, inching closer. "Because I needed you together to finish where your grandfather started. The final cleanup operation." Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. Nothing personal, just business. The gunshot echoed through the restaurant, but it wasn't Marcus's weapon that fired. Agent Diaz stood in the shattered doorway, her service weapon still raised as Marcus crumpled to the floor, clutching his shoulder. "FBI, everybody down." Hours later, in the safety of an FBI safe house, Grayson held Nia close, the adrenaline crash leaving them both shaky and exhausted. Bandages covered his knuckles as he traced her collarbone, cataloging every inch that could have been taken from him. "I've never been so scared," he admitted against her skin. She guided his face up to hers. "Show me how alive we are," she whispered, and fear transformed to fierce celebration of survival. "They say you discover who you truly are in moments of crisis. Have you ever surprised yourself with what you were capable of when someone you loved was threatened? Tell your story." As FBI agents carted boxes of evidence from his grandfather's storage unit, an agent approached with a worn leather journal. "You need to see this," she said quietly. "It explains everything. Why your families were enemies, why the marriage clause existed, and why someone still wants both of you silenced permanently. Their grandfathers hadn't been enemies. They'd been business partners whose friendship shattered over a choice between profit and people's lives, a moral fracture that bled through generations until two reluctant hearts finally closed the wound." Samuel Maddox's journal revealed the ugly truth. 40 years ago, 3 young entrepreneurs, Samuel Maddox, William Monroe, and Thomas Wright, built a chemical company together. When their waste disposal methods caused illness in nearby communities, William Monroe wanted to come clean. Samuel and Thomas refused. "Your mother was right all along," Grayson told Nia as they read through the journal together. "My grandfather orchestrated the whole lawsuit to discredit her. And your father was just another victim," Nia realized, "taking public blame while your grandfather escaped scrutiny." The marriage clause suddenly made perfect sense. Samuel's deathbed attempt at redemption, bringing together the families he'd torn apart. What he hadn't counted on was Marcus Wright continuing his father Thomas's legacy of deception. He knew Marcus was stealing from the company, Grayson said, pointing to entries in the journal. But he couldn't prove it without exposing his own crimes. The FBI investigation expanded, uncovering decades of corruption, bribery, and cover-ups. Marcus faced multiple federal charges, along with several board members implicated in the conspiracy. As the dust settled, Grayson and Nia faced their own reckoning. Their 6-month contract had nearly expired. "The terms of the will have been fulfilled," Grayson acknowledged one evening as they watched the sunset from their penthouse balcony. "You're free to go if you want." Nia turned to face him. "Is that what you want?" "No." His answer came without hesitation. "I want to build something with you. Something honest. Something real." 3 months later, they stood together in Detroit, cutting the ribbon on Monroe Maddox Educational Center, funded by the foundation mentioned in Samuel's will. Nia's mother stood beside them, frail but proud, her name finally cleared by the FBI investigation. The foundation building stood completed, not bearing the Maddox name alone, but Monroe Maddox Center for Educational Equity, its glass facade reflecting the Detroit skyline where Nia's journey began. That night, in their hotel suite overlooking the city, Grayson held her close, marveling at how differently things had turned out for what either had expected. 6 months have passed, she whispered against his jaw. The contract is fulfilled. His hands traced the curve of her spine as he moved above her. This was never about contracts, he breathed. This is about choosing you. Every day, for the rest of our lives. As dawn broke over Detroit, Nia watched Grayson sleeping peacefully beside her. Their journey from enemies to lovers to partners had been unlikely, painful, beautiful. A forced beginning had transformed into a chosen path forward. In his grandfather's final journal entry, Samuel had written, "Some wounds can only be healed by bringing together what was broken." He couldn't have known how right he would be. They were forced together by the past, but chose to build a future. Has something that initially seemed like a burden ever become your greatest blessing? Share your story of unexpected joy from difficult beginnings. If this journey from enemies to soulmates touched your heart, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that show how love can heal even the deepest wounds. Tell me in the comments which moment between Grayson and Nia resonated most with you. And remember, sometimes the person you're supposed to hate becomes the only one you can't live without.